And I see we have quite a number of children present this morning, so any who wish may now come to the front for the message for all ages. So probably most, if not all of you, don't realize this, but back in July, we had a person who was speaking from our pulpit who was a very prominent member of the Madison Muslim community. Okay? He belonged to the Islamic religion, and his name was Ibrahim Saeed, and he told us all about what it was that people in Islam believed. Just this past week, and in the next week, we are sharing our facility here, our building, with a Jewish congregation called Congregation Shari Shemayim. And there are lots of people in that congregation that are all over this building, particularly last Thursday and Friday, and then again later this coming week. And they're celebrating Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which are the most important holidays for people of the Jewish faith. And so given that we've had a visitor from Islam and that we have all these Jewish friends with us this week, I thought that this would be an interesting story to share with you today. So once in a small village, there were 3 friends, and one of them was a Muslim, and one was a Jew, and one was a Christian. And they were neighbors with each other, actually, and each one of them was a farmer, and each one farmed a small plot of land. Now, for each of these different traditions, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, the Sabbath fell on a different day. For Christians, what day is the Sabbath? Sunday. Sunday, every week on Sunday is the Christian Sabbath. For Jews, it's Saturday. So can you guess what it is for Muslims? Friday, you're right. Now, in none of these traditions are you supposed to actually do any work on the Sabbath. That's supposed to be a day of rest. And so one early spring Friday, it was around noon, and the Jewish farmer and the Christian farmer had finished plowing their fields. And as he sat eating his lunch, the Christian noticed that the field of his Muslim friend had not yet been plowed. Now, why was that? It was Friday, and the Muslim wasn't supposed to be working on a Friday. And the Christian thought to himself, if he doesn't plow his field today, it might rain tomorrow, and then he won't be able to plant his seeds, and he won't get any crop this year. I think I'll make things a bit easier, and I'll plow some of his land. And in the adjoining field, the Jewish companion, the other friend, without consulting the Christian, came upon an identical plan. And so working separately, the 2 men were able to plow the entire field of their Muslim neighbor. And the next day, when the Muslim discovered that his field had been plowed, he rejoiced, saying, "The Lord must have sent his angels down to plow my field while I observed my day of rest." Well, months and months passed, and the harvest season arrived, and the fields of all 3 friends did very, very well. There was a lot of grain to be harvested. And so one Sunday, the Jew and the Muslim, they were out harvesting their crop while their Christian brother celebrated his Sabbath. He wasn't working that day. And the Jew, when he had finished harvesting his grain, he noticed that the field of the Christian friend was ready to harvest as well. Thought, boy, he'd better get busy because he could lose part of his crop if he does not harvest it today. I think I'll pick his corn until it becomes dark, at least to help him out that way. And unbeknownst to the Christian, the Muslim brother came to the same conclusion. And between the 2 of them, they managed to harvest the entire field of their Christian friend. And so on Monday, the day after the Sabbath, when the Christian came out of his house and he looked at his field and he noticed that the whole thing had been harvested, he said to himself, "It's a miracle. The angels from heaven must have come down and harvested all of my grain." He was thrilled. Well, and then after harvest, there is some other work, a task that needs to be done. We used to do it in the old days. It was called threshing the grain. You know what threshing means? It means when you pick the grain, you still have the stalk and the hull that's actually on that piece of wheat or that corn. So you've got to get the corn or the wheat free from the stems and the hulls, and that's very, very hard work. Well, But the Muslim and the Christian were working on a Saturday, doing all this hard work, threshing their grain, and because it was the Jewish Sabbath, Saturday, their Jewish friend was home and he wasn't working. And when he had finished threshing his grain, the Muslim looked over to the other field and thought to himself, if my Jewish neighbor does not harvest his grain, it might rain and it's all going to wash away. He will lose his crop. I will do what I can to help him. And of course, as you can guess, independently, what did the Christian neighbor do? Thought exactly the same thing, went into the Jew's field and managed to thresh the rest of the crop. And so when the Sabbath was over, the Jewish farmer discovered that all of his grain had been threshed. It was ready to go to market. He lifted his eyes to heaven and he prayed, "Blessed are you, Lord of the universe. The angels have done my work while I was keeping your Sabbath." And so all of them helped each other out, and all of them ended up with a bumper crop. And the lesson here is that religions are different, that each one has its own beliefs, each one has its own day of rest, each one has its own guidelines for behavior. But friendship is universal, and friendship is what makes soulmates of us all, despite our religious differences. So that's my story for today, a nice story, I think, to get our year off right, and we urge you to go to your classes and enjoy what they have in store for you.